Hey everybody, we're in the shop today and I thought I'd give you a quick walk around video of my 2005 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited LJ with a turbocharger. So let's take a look. All right, starting from the front here, you can see we've got a little bit of a lift kit on here. I believe it's a 4 to 4.5 inch Curry springs and running 37 inch Mickey Thompson Baja Boss. These are the street legal version. And same in the back. I have the Savvy aluminum control arms, front and rear, the double adjustable. And moving around here to the back, it had this bumper on it already. I don't know what it is. It's a Chinese one. It had the tires swing out on the side here. I got rid of that. And in the back, I'm running the Texas Jeep Products tailgate rails with my socket connected there, and a custom mount for my third brake light, and the Texas Jeep Product lightweight tailgate hinges there. And the best top, I believe this is a Trek top, the NX Trek top. And this Jeep originally had a hard top on it, but I was a couple times it got close to being damaged, so I went ahead and got rid of that and put this Trek top on, and I really like it. See some custom turbo badges on the side there, and Fox shocks all the way around. Getting to the front here, take a look at this front end. This is the Curry high pinion 44. And I've also outfitted it with RCV chromoly axles. Yeah, winch and the front bumper were already on here, so I kind of kept that alone. I did do a little custom turbo fair lead there. And this is actually the hook assembly was from Harbor Freight. They had these things on clearance, and I put it in my mill and milled it down and got all, it was powder coated black. Kind of did some custom shape on there. Looks pretty custom. You can see in the front here a rather large heat exchanger, and I'll get into that when we get into the turbo stuff. But let's take a look inside real quick. Nothing too exceptional on the inside. Might be a couple things that stand out if you know your Wranglers at all. I'll let you look in here first, and then I'll explain what some of this stuff does. But yeah, pretty standard 2005 Unlimited. I don't have a cage in it currently. It's still running the stock bar. That's on my list of things to do, but I have to find one that I like, or I'll be forced to build my own. Yeah, so now that you've had a couple seconds to stew on what I showed you, let me go through some of the stuff in here. So I guess starting up top up here, I've got a switch panel up here. I've got an internal winch controller, so I can turn the winch on and off. A button for my radios to turn those on and off. An exterior light on the rear. And then I've got a GMRS and a CB. CB I don't use so much anymore, but I do still have it. Moving down the center console here, you can see Pioneer touchscreen thing. Down on the console here, winch light, pillar lights. This engine fan actually cycles the power to these gauges. ARB electric compressor under the hood, front and rear air lockers, and rock lights, and it does have rock lights on. I'll show you that in a little bit. Overdrive switch, that's a whole nother subject. I'm gonna save that for a minute. And TB, so don't look at those aren't important. Wiper, that was for when it had the hard top. I had a wiper switch wired up here, and then there's a spare and a 12-volt outlet. Moving down here, I don't know if you can kind of see on the console here, we got a couple gauges. These are kind of neat. I'll show you those here in a minute. They work with the engine management system, and it's pretty cool what they can do. Ignore those things behind the steering wheel, they're not important. And then a standard, just some rough country seat covers. Pretty standard stuff, nothing over the top. Let's move to the back here real quick. I want to talk about two things back here. One is this differential. I should have probably talked about that when I talked about the front one, but this is a East Coast Gear Supply Dana 60, and it's not a high pinion, but it's just a regular Dana 60. I'm running 456 gears with ARB air lockers front and rear, and this has, I think it's Explorer disc brakes on the outside. So that's kind of what I'm running drivetrain wise. And then you can see in the back here, I'm running a heavy duty skid plate for the gas tank. I actually hit a rock hard in Moab, so hard that it stopped my fuel pump from working properly. So I've got that, but let's go look under the hood and then we'll come back to some of that interior stuff. All right, so moving out under the hood, I've got these are the Texas Jeep products hood latches. They're lockable, and they're pretty cool. Just gives you an extra layer of security over the stock hood hinges, and they're adjustable as well, so you can turn the turnbuckles in and tighten the hood up if you're getting some rattling. Some of the hoods will rattle. Let's see if I can get this up by myself. Here we go. All right, so you can see under the hood, there's some knot stock going on here. I'll give you a good view of the knot stock. So it is a 4-liter. Well, it used to be. This engine's actually punched over to 4.7. It's a stroker, scat crank, and we did scat rods and a custom piston. About 9.5 to 1 compression, roughly. And this guy over here, that's a GT3582 Garrett ball bearing turbo, and it's feeding into a precision air to water core, and we've got 2.5-inch pipe going in there, aluminum, and then a 3-inch back there that goes from the intercooler down into the throttle body. And there's a blow off valve back here. You can kind of see it. It's a bit buried. Things start to get really tight on the Jeeps when you start doing turbochargers and stuff like that. This has the Texas Jeep Products fuel rail with the return. That really helps to keep the heats out of the fuel system because it gets hot. I do have some custom heat insulation. There's actually a piece under the intake as well to help keep some of that heat from the header from getting up into the fuel system. So the air to water, kind of the way that works, obviously you've got your air coming in the filter here, gets pressurized, sent into the intercooler and back into the throttle body. This is actually a stock throttle body still. I did bore it out. I just basically like bored straight through it. That's kind of a thing. You remove that hump in there and bore straight through it to open it up a little bit, but it is a factory 2005. I am running the, once again, got to plug it, Texas Jeep Products. You can kind of see the throttle body spacer there with the map sensor. And that is the Mopar 2-bar map sensor, and I saw those on the website as well. It's just a 3/4 inch or a little less than 3/4 inch throttle body spacer that allows you to run that map sensor and plug it right in. In the 2005, it actually plugs right into the factory electronics, which is cool. And I'll talk about that in a minute, HP tuners and all that whiz bang. So intercooler wise, so you've got the air going this way. You have water that's in this hose right here, that big one, and that water actually, that's the return, so it's running in and it goes in here, custom fitting that I made there. It's pretty sweet. And this is the water reservoir for the intercooler, pressurized cap on there, aluminum, all that good stuff. Down underneath, and you probably can't see it, but there's a pump right down there. So it comes out of the bottom of that tank, goes down into the pump, shoots the water around up and through this heat exchanger. The water gets cooled, and then it comes out of the heat exchanger goes all the way back up along that long hose and into the intercooler, where it then crosses over with the air, cools the air off, and then heads back around for another turn. So that's kind of how this system works. Oil on the turbo, kind of an interesting story there. Down here on the side of these blocks, there's an oil pressure sensor. I'm not running that. What I did instead was I ran a hose over, and it comes around the back of the battery to this guy right here. And that's a junction block for my oil system. And you can see there's a pressure sensor there, there's a feed line, and then the feed to the turbo. And that is cooled actually under here by some fins, and that helps cool the oil going into the turbo. And it also gets the oil pressure sensor off the block. Those oil pressure sensors are very, they don't like harmonics at all, so they tend to fail a lot. So if you get them off the block and get them onto something separate, that's a good thing. And then we've got the oil coming in here, the top of the turbo, goes down, and there's a drain line that runs down under into the side of the pan. It's got a fitting welded on the side of the pan. This line right here is actually water for the turbo, and the way I did that was I spliced off, and you're not gonna be able to see it because it's under the intercooler, but I spliced off the heater core. I did a T in each one of the lines and then ran through the turbo, and that water cools the center section and keeps it from coking the oil and burning the oil inside the ball bearings. So that's kind of the turbo. In the front here, got a Texas Jeep Products. This is the billet valve cover breather, and this is the 90 version. I also have a straight version. This is the 90 one, and it comes and it goes into the filter. And there's actually, when this is running, there's actually a little bit of suction because of the filter material, and that helps draw a little bit of vacuum to pull those fumes over into the turbo. And it doesn't smoke at all. There's no blow by, no smoking from this motor at all. So we don't get any of that whatsoever. On the cooling side of things, I do have, and I'm running, this is an OG, like super, one of the first ones, the overdrive water pump pulley. Sell that on the Texas Jeep Products website as well. And this is an Explorer, I believe 11 blade fan with the heavy duty fan clutch. And a factory Mopar radiator, probably one of the last ones. I bought this right on the tail end of when they were selling them. And that's pretty much it for the cooling system. Pretty basic. One of the other things you might notice is the AC lines. Normally on the 05, 02, 05, I think it's 2000 and up, they come up like this and straight across the top of the motor. I've actually relocated these. I made a custom kit where the AC line actually runs up and around the motor. So if I have to do work on the top of the engine, I don't have to pull the AC system down at all. And I did some custom billet fittings and things. And you can see right here, that's a custom fitting that I made in a compressor, discharge, and inlet. That's all custom as well. And back here, you can see a fitting right there, top of the accumulator. That's a custom fitting as well. I don't actually currently sell those. Maybe something in the future. I don't know how much demand there is for them, but they're pretty cool. Allows you to do work on the top of the motor without pulling down the AC system. Besides that, I am running the Texas Jeep Products billet dipstick turbo 4.7 because that's what it is. This is a coil rail motor, still run the coil rails. I'm running NGK7 heat range spark plugs, to help get that down a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty much it on the top of the motor here. Let's talk about engine management. Let me take you around to the computer and we'll take a look at that. Okay, you can see over here, we're actually not running a factory PCM. This is a Wrangler Fix PCM, and I'm running that because actually I switched transmissions, and so I needed a manual PCM. And you can see there's actually some custom wiring here, and that's not factory, and that's because this Jeep actually runs with an AEM standalone engine computer. and that's under the dash inside underneath the knee panel on the driver's side. And that controls the engine and only the engine. And you can see there's a couple sensors that control that. One is on the intercooler there. That's intercooler water temp. There's also the Mopar 2-bar sensor, and over here was the oil pressure sensor, and those are not factory. There's also a knock sensor down here on the side of the block that monitors detonation and can adjust timing and fuel based on spark knock. I should also mention this does have an Edelbrock aluminum head, LS valves, and that was done by Russ Pottinger. So yeah, that's kind of what we're running on the engine. We're also running a Texas Jeep Products custom crank trigger wheel, which I don't know if you can really see that. It's under here somewhere, front of the engine. But yeah, there's a custom crank trigger wheel, there you go, that you can see there, and that's a Texas Jeep Products as well, 36-1 setup. Let's get into the steering real quick, and then we'll move back a little bit. All right, talking about the steering now, factory steering box, or factory steering pump up front, and it actually has the Mercedes steering gear as well, but it's been ported. There's a feed and a return there, and they actually go to a PSC hydraulic ram that's hooked onto the steering here, and this is the Current Link steering setup on here as well. And the return actually goes into a filter here as well. That's one of the Texas Jeep Products filter housings. And I've got a transmission filter on there with a magnet. And then it also goes up through a cooler here to help keep the power steering cool. So even the steering system is a little bit custom, set up for a little bit more abuse than the stock system. All right, let's finish up under the hood here with just a couple more things. This thing I gotta show you, this is pretty cool. That is a fuse center, and I'm struggling to remember where I got that from. I'll see if I can figure it out. Maybe I'll do another video on that. It's pretty cool. They're kind of expensive, but it has inputs and outputs that are connected here with connectors, and then different relays and fuses for different things. And you can see I've got some of the stuff labeled in there, which is pretty cool. That's kind of neat. The other thing is my ARB air compressor's buried right there, and then I've got a connection here for it. And then there's also one, this is the one I actually use the most, is back here on the back. And then I've got I believe it's 3-gallon air tank under here right above the back axle. And that's just a storage tank, so I can use it a little bit more and keep the duty cycles down on the compressor. So that's kind of nifty. Over here, I've got a trickle charging port and just a standard interstate battery, heavy duty single aught cables on here. Texas Jeep Products battery hold down, of course. And I've got an air horn here for, you know, people driving around in Dallas that don't know how to drive. But yeah, that kind of rounds out pretty much everything under the hood. And we'll move back after this and we'll talk about the transmission and transfer case. All right, moving back into the interior here. Let's talk about these guys. Paddle shift. Wait. That's not a Jeep thing. That doesn't belong in here. Well, we did something a little bit special on this one. This Jeep has a different transmission and transfer case. You can't really see it very well because it's so well hidden in here under the front and transmission skid plates, but you can kind of get a look at it there. That is a Ford 6R80 transmission with an adapter and a bunch of customness. And coupled to that, we've got an Atlas transfer case. And I know it's kind of hard to see. Light's not very good down here. Adams drive shafts, front and rear, 1350s, all the way around with the CVs, front and rear, and skid plates. And then the transmission cooler is right there. And it sits upside down with a little fan on it and keeps the transmission cool. So what's cool about that is the 6R80 running with the Quick 6 shift controller, which is also under the dash. And I don't know if you're gonna be able to see any of this stuff, but there is an AM computer under there somewhere and a Quick 6. You have to take my word for it. And then they both plug in the glove box. There's USB cables. But that allows us to run a 6-speed transmission with paddle shifts. Also gives us overdrive in all forward gears. So we get torque converter lockup in all forward gears. And we also have a trans brake that we can run. And that is all in the transmission with no modifications whatsoever inside the transmission. This transmission's out of like a 2014 Ford Expedition. And we run it no problems whatsoever with the boost all the way up, which also that's another subject. I keep getting sidetracked, but this knob right here actually controls our boost levels. We have 4 different positions of boost levels, and we can change our boost pressure and rev limiter actually as well with that knob. And then down here we have the dual sticks for the Atlas. So we have the standard. This is the Atlas race case. It has a bigger idler, I believe, and it's the 4.3 to 1 Atlas. So that coupled with the rear end gears and the low first in the transmission, which I'm struggling to remember, but I believe it's a 417 first gear in the 6R80, gives us like an 80 something to 1, 81 or 83 to 1 crawl ratio with this setup. So that's pretty unique to this Jeep. I don't know of any other Jeeps running that 6R80, but it is a bulletproof transmission. A lot of the import guys run them, put them in Mustangs. They put them, you know, a bunch of swaps into older modified vehicles and stuff, and they're well known to hold 1,000 horsepower in stock configuration. I actually have another one. It's actually down here. That's my spare, and it's built with some goodies in it. It's got some 300M shafts in it, a bunch of race bushings in it, and like Kevlar clutches or some kind of a fancy racing clutch material, and that's my backup in case this one ever goes. So yeah, that's the transmission setup. So let's move back inside and I'll show you how some of these gauges and things work. All right, let me show you how this works. So we have down here on the center console said I've got this switch here that turns the gauges on. The center one is actually boost pressure and air fuel around the outside. These two are CAN bus gauges hooked to the AEM. So right now this one's on oil pressure, I believe, and that one's a rev limit. But you can cycle these through and have them tell you different things, like there's fuel pressure right there. You've also got oil pressure, slip, speed, coolant temperature, IAT, how hot's IATs right now, 109, temp for the oil, transmission temp, which I do have hooked up, TPS, air fuel, and you can cycle these both through independently, and that gives you, you know, your different readouts for all your stuff. So that's kind of neat, and that works with the AEM on the CAN bus network. Another kind of cool feature in here is the stock shifter. I actually took the gate out of it and re-notched it, and so we have our extra positions here for the 6R80. So you got reverse, neutral, drive, and then 3, 2, 1, and I re-notched it so that it goes 1 to 2 to 3 to drive, neutral, just like the stock one, and then reverse. So I had to do some grinding and welding on that gate to get it to fit, which is pretty cool. I just like things to work, you know, the way that they're supposed to. So yeah, that's kind of the walk around. I don't know if I talked about the wheels. Those are the Rock Monster double bead locks. You can do your research on those if it interests you. Antennas in the rear. We got some Genrite goodies. We got the little fender dealies. There's also the hood vent thing. That's one of those Genrite deals as well. Someday, whenever I hit the lottery, I'll do the Genrite bumpers and some of that stuff. But yeah, anyway, that is kind of a walk around of my 05 LJ. It is super, super duper hot out here. I'm dying. I'm starting to lose my voice. The GoPro keeps shutting off. It's hot. So I think I'm gonna take off and go jump in the pool and be done with this mess. If you got any other questions or anything, or want to see some more videos, I'm gonna do another video where we do some driving around. That's not today, it's too hot. But yeah, hit me up. Go ahead and put in the comments if there's anything else you want to see. And yeah, thanks for watching. Okay, I know that wasn't very nice of me. I wouldn't do you dirty like that. We didn't even talk horsepower, torque numbers. It's a little bit of a tricky question. They're all over the place. We have our multiple boost switch down here. That does change the horsepower and torque a little bit. We can go from, you know, just over wastegate, which I think is about 7 pounds on this, all the way to, I think, right at about 10 pounds right now. But we've had it as high as 20 in the past on boost pressure. So at 7 pounds, it does right about 400 wheel. That's the 4.7 stroker with 7 pounds of boost on top. It was 387, something like that. Turned up all the way, 20 pounds of boost. We were over 550. I don't like to run it there all the time. It's a little unmanageable to drive in the first place with the suspension and everything, but it's just it's real hard on everything, and the chassis really gets to twisting and unsettling pretty crazy. But right now I'm running about 10 pounds. I think I've got it turned up all the way. At 10 pounds, it's probably somewhere in the 450 range, something like that. 430, 450, 470. I don't really know exactly. And torque is about the same. So with the 4.7 stroker, you know, it's about 400 horsepower, 400 torque, 450, 450. It stays pretty much the same all the time, and it drives really well with the AEM. You can see it idles really nice. AC's blasting right now. No check engine lights. Oil pressure's 30. Trans temp 132. So I mean, it's pretty fun to drive, even when you're stuck at a railroad track waiting on the train that never ends. But maybe when I get around this corner here, I'll do a little mini rip, and we can go for a little bit longer drive a different day. But I wasn't gonna do you like that and leave the video unfinished without the horsepower and torque. All right, green light. So we just click the paddle shift. That was about half throttle. I'm not gonna go full throttle with only one hand. This thing's a handful.